You know, when we last saw Adrian Miller, he was at a soul food hangout dropping knowledge like hot biscuits. That's right, he's a single man on a single mission, opening our eyes and tantalizing our taste buds about the origin of some of our favorite soul food, one plate at a time. New today, we're learning more about the role of some special culinary gatekeepers all the way to the White House to the state of food in America as we continue exploring our past, present, and future when it comes to American cuisine. It's just interesting the knowledge that you're dropping about all of this. How did this become your passion? I mean, you call yourself a recovery man.
Yeah.
Are you really living your passion with the food, and how is that you ended up being drawn to this?
Right. So basically, I read a book by a guy named John Edgerton called Soul Food, At Home, On the Road, and History. And in that book, he said the tribute to African American cooks has yet to be written. So I just emailed him because I was reading the book when it was about 10 years old. So I just emailed him and I said, Mr. Edgerton, you wrote this. Do you still think this is true? He said, yeah, for the most part, nobody's taken on the full story. So with no qualifications except for eating soul food a lot and cooking it some, I just started to trace the history. One thing led to another. I decided to write this book. And now, and part of it was a lot of people are hating on soul food. And I wanted to just correct the record and say, this is food worthy of celebration, as long as you understand what it's about. Because even though we think soul food may need a warning label, if you look at what nutritionists are telling us to eat today, dark leafy greens, sweet potatoes, fish, all of legumes, all of those are the building blocks of soul food. So eat the celebration part of it in moderation, but you can have this stuff several times a week if you just make it a different way.
And the second part of our interview, I definitely want to let everybody know, in addition to you being a lawyer, you've got a second book in addition to Soul Food that's coming out.
Right.
This is unique.
Right.
You're literally looking at the folks in the kitchen cabinet, if you will,
Yes.
inside of the White House. Tell me about that.
So while researching the soul food book, what I found out is that every president of the United States has had an African American in their kitchen, whether it was the White House or when they traveled on the presidential train, yacht, or Air Force One, or when they went someplace and stayed for a while. And so I captured the stories of those cooks and their recipes. And what you found out is that these cooks were not only culinary geniuses, but they were civil rights advisors. And a lot of times they became confidants of the first family. So I call this book The President's Kitchen Cabinet, the story of the African Americans who have fed the first families from the Washingtons to the Obamas.
And when you think about it, the movie that Oprah and Forrest Whitaker, I believe that was The Butler.
The Butler, right. So another rich story, but this one is even richer because this goes back all the way to the Washingtons. And what people don't know is, for most of our history, black women ran the White House kitchen. Now, they didn't but back in the day, chefs weren't regarded the way they are now as celebrities. Back in the day, cooking was kind of a menial thing. It was important, but these cooks didn't get much love, and I'm trying to correct the record on that.
Way to go. And when you talk about the soul food, it was interesting to hear you talk about the president's former leaders who were down with yams and even chitlins. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so the best story is pig's feet. All right. Now, when I ask people to guess which president loved pig's feet, everybody says Bill Clinton, who's the president I worked for. But actually, it was FDR. So Franklin Roosevelt fell in love with pig's feet because he would go to Warm Springs, Georgia, and get there's a hot springs there, so he'd get treatments for his polio. And there was a cook named Daisy Bonner who was loaned from a wealthy family to the president while he was in town. And she got him hooked on broiled pig's feet. And so he actually served that in the White House to Winston Churchill. Now, Winston Churchill was not feeling it, but FDR loved pig's feet. In fact, if you go to Warm Springs right now and go to look at the last week of his life, the shopping list that was created, there's 4 pig's feet on that.
Oh, my goodness. So I have to ask you, if you weren't being a lawyer, that you would ultimately be a foodie.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So one of the things I'm trying to do is also create more demand for this food history. Because I think, especially African Americans, we kind of tend to gravitate towards cookbooks, but there's a lot more complexity to the food story. I mean, it's talking about the history. It's talking about food justice, right? Why are so many people hungry in this country, in our community, and how can we correct that? So there's a lot of stories to be told, and doing cookbooks is fine, but I just hope that people start to get more interest in this broader story.
Okay, and I can't let you go. I heard you say that you worked with the Clinton administration.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
All right, I worked on something called the President's Initiative for One America. It was an outgrowth of President Clinton initiative on race. And the idea, crazy as it was that if we just got to know each other and talk to each other, we might realize we have a lot more in common than what supposedly divides us. And once we understand that, then we can start working towards peace, right? Living together, loving each other. That was the basic idea. And then the other part of it was looking at the disparities in access to racial disparities and access to healthcare, education, financing for businesses. Try to close those. We call those the opportunity gaps. So it was a twofold effort. Short-lived because it was only about a couple of years, but I think there's ripe opportunity to take up that work. And don't we need to talk to each other a lot right now, given what's happening?
Absolutely.
And I think food is a way to bring us together.
And I was going to say that. What better way to do that than with breaking bread?
Right. Just don't talk with your mouth full.
Guys, you heard it here from Adrian Miller. I cannot thank him enough for joining us. He has a book that's called Soul Food. It's talking about the surprising story and history of our history, if you will. Soul food. Though I'm not a big soul food eater, anybody who knows me, Adrian, I know you feel like you can't trust me now because I don't do grits, greens, or beans, but you know what? I have a lot more respect for those whose shoulders I'm standing on. And I definitely hope that you got something from this interview that you can take back to your own kitchen and admire. And definitely love on your grandmother who's still doing those pound cakes. And if she's around, give her a big hug and a kiss because you know what? The struggle's real. Guys, spread the word. Tell a friend. Vision, voice, Varion. Always on, always connected.